With 2023 wearing down and 2024 just looming on the horizon, I figured we'd do a little revisit of a segment I did quite a few years ago where we kind of take stock in where are we at right now with the Transformers Studio Series line and what is missing up to this point. We've had listings for 2024 that show what Hasbro intends to do with Studio Series, and a lot of it is more of the recent movies, the Bumblebee movie, Age of Extinction, a little bit of Rise of the Beast, a whole bunch of like concept stuff, video game stuff. So we're going to pretty much cover what hasn't Hasbro done yet with Studio Series for the first three movies. The original 2007 one, Revenge of the Fallen, and Dark of the Moon. And at some point in the near future, not sure when, we will do Age of Extinction, The Last Night, Bumblebee movie, and Revenge and Rise of the Beast. I feel even Rise of the Beast, it's still too soon. They're still kind of figuring out which characters to do and stuff. And not to mention in 2024, it'll actually be the 10th anniversary of Age of Extinction, which is crazy when you think about it. Age of Extinction is now 10 years old. So that being said, let's go 17 years back and make you feel even older, almost 17 years, to the first Michael Bay movie. Now, what are we missing pretty much figure-wise from that first 2007 Michael Bay movie? And it really isn't that much. Hasbro's done a pretty good job of covering all the bases, much like they've done recently with the movie Masterpiece line. You're pretty much missing this and that. You know, do we need, Nokia bot, or the steering wheel bot, or the Xbox 360 bot? The steering wheel bot, okay, if we get, a stockade at some point. Stockade was very similar to that black Escalade that steering wheel bot came from. So maybe when we get a stockade figure at some point through Studio Series, they'll have a little steering wheel bot as an extra accessory on the side. I can almost see that happening. Maybe even the 360 and a Nokia bot, they'll do them as a deluxe class, they'll put them in a 3-pack with it or something, little PVC figures on the side. I could see that. But then you fall into, okay, what about Dispensor? He's someone that actually has a little bit of cachet. He had that Robot Hero figure in 2008 that came with Ironhide. He had a movie advance toy in 2014 in Japan. I could see them revisiting that guy. They'll probably have to figure out a way either to do something with Mountain Dew on a licensing thing, or just completely ignore that and just do their own thing and just do like what they did with that movie advance one and do a retool or something. I'm very curious how they'll handle Dispensor, but that is one that would be curious. The thing is that I see it almost being done more in the core class price point, because it wouldn't be a deluxe. That would be way too big a vending machine. Do it in the core class price point that now is new to Studio Series, and you could get a little Dispensor figure out of that. That's what I could see. One of the big ones here that are missing is Frenzy. And this was one that, historically, this character has always come with Barricade, all the past versions pretty much more or less. And then when they did Barricade Studio Series, it didn't come with a Frenzy figure, which could have easily just been a little PVC figure. It didn't have to transform. We've seen that already with some of the other characters we're going to talk about today. But they didn't do one. And still to this point, we don't have a proper Studio Series Frenzy figure. Now, it's something like I just said before, it could kind of maybe fit in the core class. Maybe you could do a core class one, something small that could be transformable. It won't be in scale with the other characters. He obviously won't be this small little boom box that then turns into a character, but at least we would have a Studio Series Frenzy figure. I'm very curious how they could go about it. I think that for scale purposes, they could include him as a small little PVC figure with maybe a future release, who knows, just so they could kind of just say, hey, here it is for your in-scale shots. But to do a nice, fun little transforming Frenzy figure, potentially do something with Studio Series. He was a big character in the movie, and I'm surprised how that oversight was done. Maybe they just didn't have the budget and the price point for a deluxe class Barricade to include him in there as an extra. I don't know, but I do feel at some point there will be an opportunity to have Frenzy out there in some shape or form. And the last one really that, in my opinion, is the key thing that is missing from the 2007 movie with Studio Series is we've still yet to get a proper protoform figure. Just one. just one really cool one. It's such an iconic scene. It's such an emotional, memorable scene for all us Transformer fans that were in that theater back in 2007. And I mean, we got to get a protoform. We got to get some kind of protoform figure. That would be really cool to get a really screen accurate one. So we'll see. We will see with that. When we get into Revenge of the Fallen, we dive first into the big ones of what's happening with Skids and Mudflap. Now, there's the controversy. There's like, oh, they're not doing it because of racism. I really don't think so. I think it's just they're not very popular characters, and maybe Hasbro's just kind of waiting for their opportunity to do that, if anything. First of all, the Skids and Mudflap, the Ice Cream Twins version, you could get something out of that. And then you could do the Skids and Mudflap, the Chevrolet Beat and the Chevrolet Trax versions of them. And I think the main reason why they really didn't do it is because, Mudflap was a disaster back in the day. He really shelf-warmed really bad. And it's something that I think they just want to put a lot of time in between that and then one day finally do them. And then we'll get those guys. We'll get them for sure. I firmly believe we will get both of them. And I don't think it's the drama that people really painted out to be more than anything else. Reno Wilson was the voice of one of those characters. It's crazy the things that I see online of why people think those characters don't have recent toys. But anyways, point being, definitely those guys are missing. I want to put Wheelie on here as an honorable mention also, because while he does have a non-transformable little figurine that has no articulation that came with Studio Series 56 Voyager Dark of the Moon Shockwave, I do feel it would be cool if he got a small little transformable thing. The only problem with that is if it's scale. If he was to scale with his actual size, he would be so tiny that you can't do something that's transformable. So you kind of fall on to like what a lot of fans have been doing. They've been opting to use the Legend scale one that came out like, what was it, like 14 years ago with Revenge of the Fallen, that little 2009 Legend scale version. And that little Legend scale one, because it was $4.99 back then MSRP, that thing's like jumped to like $30-$40 today. So it'd be kind of cool to have something a little modern. Maybe do it in the core class. Even if it's something that won't be to scale, at least update that character in a little transformable kind of nature. That'd be pretty rad. Because that little PVC one, while it is appreciated in its scale with Shockwave, I feel that it could still be done. He's a fun character. I've always liked him. And speaking of like super small, non-transformable figures that will be hard to get away with, Reedman's another one from Revenge of the Fallen. He was that microorganism, Cybertronian, Soundwave, kind of looks like a mantis, but not really kind of character. He didn't really transform. He's one of those that I could see, yeah, you could do that as a PVC non-transformable figure. That could be thrown in with somebody. I'm surprised it didn't come with the Soundwave that we got all that while back. So he's one that's missing too. Another one is Scalpel. Scalpel is another one of those dudes that like at 1-to-1 scale with the Studio Series stuff would be impossible because of how tiny he would be. He transformed into a little microscope. How big would he be if they made a transforming figure to a deluxe scale that was to scale? It just wouldn't work. And he's another one of those, 15 years ago, he got a Legend scale figure, almost 15 years ago, he got a Legend scale figure, and that was that. So it'd be kind of cool to get an update of him, maybe put him into that core class again. Can't do something that's to scale, but definitely could be do something that could be at least updated into the modern era. Another one, too, that's even more crazy. Let's talk about those insecticons from the Egypt desert scene. An example of something that's way too tiny if you did it in scale. And that transformation would be out of the question. This is something that to scale with your deluxe figure would be a grain of sand, so it'd be way too small. But, once again, one of those things just had that one scout class figure like almost 15 years ago, and that was it. So it'd be kind of cool to have something, again, maybe in core class, could be brought to the modern, world. A weird one also, Demolisher. Obviously we have Scavenger that's part of that big Devastator Studio Series box set, and of course he also had an individual release too. So you have Demolisher, who was part of the opening of the movie, and he was pretty much just like a white redeco of Scavenger. So I'm kind of surprised they just didn't take that Scavenger and just do the white repaint. I'm pretty sure they'll do it one day. Like that's one of the things out of this entire list here. I think they're just waiting for the slot or the opportunity, because yeah, you do a white repaint and you're good to go, and that'll be that, and you'll get that opening scene from Revenge of the Fallen with that character. Here's one. Let's talk about Alice for a moment. Technically our pretender. That's a tough one, but that's one I could see, as a pack-in. They'll pack in 2 little non-transformable PVC figures. One of Alice in her human mode, and then one in Alice in her crazy Cybertronian robot mode. I could see that being done, but a transformable figure definitely won't happen. But, it is something I could see them doing as a pack-in with whatever they'll do. Like, we could get Demolisher and then have Alice as a pack-in on the side, even though they're not in the same scenes, but they're definitely in the same movie. So you could kind of do that, and it would kind of grease the wheels on the repaint of Demolisher. Oh, why would I get this if I got the Devastator before? Well, you get the Alice figures. Ooh, so I could see that. And speaking of crazy stuff that Sam had to deal with in that movie, we might be splitting hairs on this one, but all the Allspark-born kitchen appliances in his house that happened from the shard of the Allspark. So that's, the blender bot with that penis, the Dyson vacuum cleaner, the microwave bot, the waffle iron bot, the cappuccino bot, the garbage disposal bot, the hand mixer, the stand mixer kind of thing too, the internet Wi-Fi router box. I mean, all of those, do them in a box set. PVC, non-transformable, I don't know. I mean, Ejector was the only one that kind of did get a toy 15 years ago in that Legend scale, but he's the only one that really got anything. So if they want to do a crazy box set, I mean, I don't think that'll ever happen, but if you want to split hairs, all of those guys still are kind of waiting. What we could do today is go to your bots display, take a couple of those kitchen bots, and they could be your stand-ins for the time being. So, and for some odd ones also, like the 7 primes. I mean, where does that fit in there? Could you take the leader class Fallen figure and retool it into those vague designs and the veneering that we can't really see due to lighting? We really just got a lot of silhouettes of those. So the 7 primes, do you want to do figures of those guys? Would anyone care? Sure. And the last one, when it comes to at least Revenge of the Fallen, is Stratosphere. Now, this one's a tough one. Questionable, if anything, because while us fans, we look at that drop ship that dropped Optimus at the beginning of the movie and we go, oh, that's Stratosphere. And we make that connection because of the Revenge of the Fallen toy that pretty much in spirit is the same thing. It's this giant plane. It has a mini Optimus figure that it drops out of the back. We kind of make that connection. But when you look at the movie itself, they're very 2 different planes. The Stratosphere toy and the plane in the movie is different, and it was never established at any point in the movie that this was an Autobot that transforms. It's kind of something we did in our own head, if anything. I still like to believe that it's Stratosphere, myself personally, but I get where Hasbro could find a way out of having to do anything with that one. And I mean, at the end of the day, if they did a 1-to-1 scale Stratosphere figure with, like, let's say your Voyager class Optimus Prime, it would be like big as a Titan class, if not bigger. Whatever the scale you could call HasLab Unicron. So that would be a crazy one, and then you get into like, well, it's the same problem that they had with the Rise of the Beast Stratosphere. How do you do that with how big he is as a character? The last one we're going to cover is Dark of the Moon, like I said. And Dark of the Moon, the first big one here is Movie Q, a.k.a. Wheeljack from Dark of the Moon. This guy needs a toy badly. He had one figure back in 2012, and it got a super limited release because originally it was going to be a retail item here in the West with United States and Canada for Dark of the Moon, but toy sales were so bad for Dark of the Moon that they canceled that last wave or so, and Q ended up only in the Asian market, and that pretty much blew up then in the secondary market. And today, a loose, incomplete Q figure goes for big money. So it'd be nice to get an updated deluxe class Studio Series Q for Dark of the Moon in Studio Series. And it would obviously be way better with the modern engineering, and it would soften the market on that original Dark of the Moon one. So that'd be pretty cool. We also have the Dreads. Now this one, of course, most of them have been done in Studio Series, and we do have a Hatchet on its way. So technically we have all the Dreads, but Hatchet right now is in this weird limbo. We don't have listings of where he's going to show up at some point. So as it stands right now, while we do have a Hatchet coming, he is still in limbo. So maybe he'll happen, maybe he won't. We don't know. Hopefully he will happen. We do have the designs and everything, and he was supposed to be, I believe, a buzzworthy Bumblebee item, but everything's in limbo right now with that guy. And the last thing with Dark of the Moon is all those background dudes. There's so many miscellanea Decepticons and stuff. There's Loader, there's the DevCon, there's that Watchbot. There's so many of those, but I'd be splitting hairs with those guys again. Same thing. The only other one I can mention is, let's get into what Hasbro's doing now with Studio Series, the concept colors line and the concept ideas and concept art and everything. Why don't we talk about early trailer Sentinel Prime? So Sentinel Prime in the very first teaser trailer of Dark of the Moon actually had like a yellow and silver kind of color scheme. So they could take that Sentinel Prime leader class that they've already invested in with Studio Series, and they could do a concept color repaint, make it a store exclusive, and people get all FOMO on it and everything. So that's the way I could see it. And the last thing is, with that new core class price point, you could kind of maybe have some fun, because now you have some tiny figures that are of the bigger guys, and maybe you could redo the arc from Dark of the Moon in some way. I doubt they'll do it. That's very toyetic, and Studio Series is not very toyetic. It's more collector oriented, but it would be kind of cool to see an excuse for them to do an arc play set, and they could work with the little core class Studio Series stuff and work with that scale, but definitely nothing that could work with the figures we have today in the normal scales of deluxe and upward. But that's it, more or less, of a Studio Series of what we're missing up to that point. Obviously, anything else would really be splitting hairs and going, oh, what about that black background character for half a millisecond? It's like, well, it is what it is, but hopefully we'll get some of these guys. I mean, I would love to see like an updated Dispensor. It would be cool to see him. And I feel like, the twins, Skids and Mudflap, they'll get their due at some point. So we'll see. We will see. Who would you like to see out of the ones I've listed? Who would you like to see be done next? Obviously, again, we have listings for 2024, and so far, it doesn't look like any of these guys are happening. Even the Hatchet one is still in limbo right now. But who would you like to see? And then at some point in the future, we'll cover Age of Extinction, The Last Night Bumblebee movie, and Rise of the Beast. Again, those guys are actually going to be getting some new product in 2024. So I want to see those come out first before I make a list of those movies and what we could expect to see or what we would hope to see that is still missing. But let me know what you think, and I hope you're enjoying this beautiful Friday, Black Friday, and all the craziness. And we'll be doing a live stream tomorrow for the Transformer Slag podcast. So thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you in the near future.